John Lennon is oft quoted as saying that life is what happens while you're making other plans. And one of the main questions I have for you today is, you're someone who hacks the human experience and you pay attention to all these minute details of every aspect of your life, or that's the way it seems to me. And do you ever feel that maybe you're not in the moment, or maybe you're not enjoying life as much as you could be because you're trying to figure out how to make it as good as it could be?
The content that I put out tends to be the highlight reel of that obsessive analytical behavior, but I do think I'm present tense most of the time.
Okay.
And I do have certain practices or routines that I rely on to help that along, because it's extremely easy, I think, to be achievement focused, so forward driving and goal oriented. What is challenging, I think, for people, certainly in the US and I think in the UK and elsewhere, is having the proper balance of achievement and appreciation, the latter of which depends on having gratitude for the present, for what you have in the present state and your quality of life. That can be very difficult, and for that reason, I'll take, let's say, 3 to 5 minutes each morning, and I have a very particular sort of meditative routine that I use with one music track, and I focus on the things I'm grateful for. So I start each day and end each day with a list, a gratitude list, effectively. And that's a very pragmatic exercise. There's nothing new age or metaphysical about it. But I find that helps calibrate me for the rest of the day. And I also do take downtime, because I think you need the negative space. You need the negative space to appreciate what it is that you're trying to create, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can just imagine someone like you finding it quite difficult to switch off. I mean, you clearly have a very active and very powerful mind. So me and many people in my social circle, we speak about how sometimes it's difficult to just turn it off, and just be.
Yeah.
And
yeah, it can be very difficult. And what I've found, at least, is that I don't actually... there are few ways that I have experimented with completely turning off, which can be restful. It can also be very stressful, I think, for certain types of people. One of which is floatation tanks and sensory deprivation. So I actually borrowed from Joe Rogan, which can be very effective, and that's available certainly here in London and in most highly industrialized cities. But I find that I recover best when I actually just switch my focus. So instead of doing nothing, I'll focus on doing something that's completely unrelated to what I had been focusing on, if that makes sense.
Active rest.
Yeah, and this is in a mental capacity, but also a physical capacity. So if I'm, let's just say for the last year and a half, I focused on writing 4-Hour Chef and putting out the 4-Hour Chef, and it's been a huge project with, in every respect, a startup. I mean, there were a team of 40 to 50 people at the peak. And in every time zone imaginable. It was a really large project. And I've gone to the gym and focused on, let's say, deadlifting, occasional swimming, etc. And so when I switch off, the way I'll probably do that is by focusing on, let's say, learning a new language in a different location with a completely different type of outdoor exercise. And I'll find that helps me to recover better than trying to create emptiness.
I'm guessing the more exciting or harder ways, you once spoke of taking large doses of magic mushrooms as an ego reset.
Your annual ego reset, I think you mentioned on your first Rogan appearance.
Oh yeah,
is that something you still do?
Yeah, that hasn't changed.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think the reason that reset helps is very similar to why the context switching of wholeheartedly focusing on something unrelated to work is relaxing, and that is, it strips away a lot of the internal dialogue and the planning that I think pulls you out of the present moment. And magic mushrooms are certainly a very strong, forceful way to make that happen. But I think it can be done by putting yourself in a very different set of circumstances that forces you to focus on something you don't typically focus on. It doesn't have to be a candle flame that you meditate on. A few months ago, I took my first trip to Alaska, which was really life-changing for me. I ended up 5 to 6 hours total flight time north of Fairbanks. which is well above the Arctic Circle, arguably the most remote point in North America. And we were dropped off in a small seaplane on the side of a lake. And they gave us our satellite phone, and we threw all our gear out, and they said, we'll see you in a week. And we ended up hunting caribou, fishing, and foraging blueberries and whatnot for the entire time there. No phones, no calendars, no computers, not even any books or magazines. Didn't do any reading. It was just all manual labor and working for food and making food. And it was I kid you not, it was probably only 5 or 6 days, but when I came back from that experience, it was like I'd taken a 6-month vacation.